The world stands at a crossroads, facing a confluence of crises that threaten the very fabric of our societies. From the COVID-19 pandemic to the war in Ukraine, from climate change to soaring inequality, the challenges we face are interconnected and demand urgent attention. At the heart of these crises lies a set of economic policies known as neoliberalism, which have dominated the global landscape for decades. These policies, with their emphasis on deregulation, privatization, and free market fundamentalism, have exacerbated inequality, eroded social safety nets, and pushed our planet to the brink. Neoliberalism, often touted as a path to prosperity, has instead created a world where the rich get richer and the poor are left further behind. It is a system that prioritizes profit over people, where corporations wield immense power and the voices of ordinary citizens are drowned out. The COVID-19 pandemic laid bare the deep-seated inequalities that neoliberalism has wrought. The war in Ukraine, a tragedy in its own right, has further destabilized the global economy, disrupting supply chains, fueling inflation, and exacerbating food insecurity. The roots of neoliberalism can be traced back to the mid-20th century, a period marked by economic upheaval and social unrest. Contrary to popular belief, the rise of neoliberal policies predates the Reagan and Thatcher era, finding fertile ground in the administrations of Richard Nixon and Jimmy Carter. Nixon, facing economic challenges such as inflation and a decline in US global economic dominance, embraced the ideas of Milton Friedman, a leading proponent of free market economics. Friedman argued that government intervention in the economy was inherently inefficient and that the market left to its own devices would allocate resources more effectively. This philosophy, known as monetarism, influenced Nixon's decision to abandon the gold standard in 1971, paving the way for greater financial deregulation. Carter, despite his progressive image, continued down the path of deregulation, starting with the airline industry. This move, intended to increase competition and lower prices, had the unintended consequence of eroding labor unions, depressing wages, and setting a precedent for deregulation in other sectors. These early neoliberal policies set the stage for the more radical reforms implemented by Reagan and Thatcher in the 1980s. The embrace of neoliberal policies has had a profound and lasting impact on income inequality, both in the United States and globally. The deregulation of financial markets, coupled with tax cuts for the wealthy and corporations, has led to a massive concentration of wealth in the hands of the few, while the incomes of ordinary workers have stagnated or even declined. The decline of labor unions, a direct result of neoliberal policies such as deregulation and trade agreements that incentivize offshoring, has weakened the bargaining power of workers, making it more difficult for them to secure fair wages and benefits. As corporations have grown more powerful, they have used their influence to lobby for policies that benefit their bottom line, often at the expense of workers and the environment. As inequality grows, so too does social unrest, political polarization, and distrust in institutions. The erosion of the middle class, a cornerstone of stable democracies, threatens to undermine the very foundations of our political systems. Rising inequality has been linked to a host of negative social outcomes, including poorer health outcomes, lower life expectancy, increased crime rates, and reduced social mobility. The COVID-19 pandemic, a global health crisis of unprecedented scale, exposed the deep-seated inequalities and systemic flaws that have been festering for decades under neoliberal policies. As the virus spread rapidly across the globe, it revealed the fragility of our healthcare systems, the precariousness of employment for millions, and the inadequacy of social safety nets. Those in low-wage jobs, often in essential sectors such as healthcare, transportation, and food service, were disproportionately affected, facing greater exposure to the virus and economic hardship due to lockdowns and business closures. Meanwhile, those in higher income brackets were able to weather the storm more comfortably, often working from home and benefiting from a surge in asset prices. The pandemic highlighted the human cost of decades of neoliberal policies that have prioritized efficiency and profit over resilience and social protection. It laid bare the consequences of underfunded public services, inadequate healthcare access, and a growing gig economy that leaves millions without basic labor protections. The pandemic should serve as a wake-up call, a stark reminder that our current economic system is not only unjust but also unsustainable. Section 5, the war in Ukraine fueling the flames of economic instability. The war in Ukraine, a tragedy with far-reaching humanitarian consequences, has further destabilized the global economy, exacerbating existing challenges and creating new ones. The conflict, rooted in geopolitical tensions and power struggles, has disrupted supply chains, fueled inflation, and exacerbated food insecurity, particularly in regions heavily reliant on grain imports from Ukraine and Russia. The war's impact on energy markets has been particularly acute. Russia, a major energy exporter, has been hit with sanctions, leading to a surge in oil and gas prices. This energy crisis has fueled inflation globally, eroding purchasing power and putting a strain on households and businesses already struggling with the economic fallout of the pandemic. The war in Ukraine underscores the interconnectedness of our world and the need for international cooperation to address global challenges. It also highlights the dangers of militarism and the urgent need to invest in diplomacy, conflict resolution, and peace-building efforts. Section 6, Chomsky's clarion call, the precipice and the urgent need for change. In The Precipice, Noam Chomsky and C.J. Polychroniou critique neoliberalism and its devastating consequences. They argue that our current economic and political order is unsustainable, leading to inequality, environmental degradation, and a decline in democratic values. The roots of our predicament trace back to the rise of neoliberal policies in the late 20th century. These policies prioritize profit over people and the planet. The COVID-19 pandemic and the war in Ukraine are symptoms of a deeper systemic crisis. These events expose the flaws of our systems, highlighting the urgent need for radical change. Chomsky and Polychroniou advocate for a just and equitable system prioritizing people and the planet. Section 7. Charting a new course: alternatives to neoliberal policies. The challenges we face are daunting, but they are not insurmountable. There are alternatives to neoliberal policies, pathways to a more just, equitable, and sustainable future. One such alternative is a Green New Deal, a transformative set of policies aimed at tackling climate change while creating jobs and reducing inequality. A Green New Deal would involve massive investments in renewable energy, energy efficiency, public transportation, and sustainable agriculture. Another alternative is a more robust social safety net, one that provides universal healthcare, affordable housing, quality education, and a guaranteed basic income. Such a safety net would provide security and opportunity for all, regardless of their background or circumstances. We also need to rethink our approach to globalization, moving away from a model based on exploitation and towards one based on cooperation and fair trade. Section 8, the power of collective action towards a more just and equitable future. The path to a more just and equitable future will not be easy. It will require sustained effort, collective action, and a willingness to challenge the status quo. Social movements, labor unions, and grassroots organizations have a crucial role to play in this struggle. By organizing, mobilizing, and demanding change, they can hold power to account and push for policies that benefit the many, not the few. We also need to engage in constructive dialogue, building bridges across divides and finding common ground. This means listening to those with different perspectives, seeking to understand their concerns and working together to find solutions that work for everyone. By embracing a spirit of solidarity, harnessing the power of collective action, and demanding change, we can create a more just, equitable, and sustainable future for all. Section 9, Conclusion, a crossroads of crisis and opportunity. We stand at a crossroads facing crises that threaten our societies: COVID-19, the war in Ukraine, climate change, and inequality. These are interconnected challenges demanding urgent attention. They are symptoms of a deeper systemic crisis rooted in neoliberal policies. We must chart a new course, embracing a just, equitable, and sustainable vision. This requires a shift from profit to holistic progress. By embracing solidarity and collective action, we can create a sustainable world. The time for action is now. Let us seize this moment to build a better future for all.